In 2021, a group of university students exploring abandoned villages in southern Jordan came across a settlement that did not appear on any tourist maps. Most of the buildings had collapsed decades ago. The streets were empty. The houses were crumbling. Everything looked exactly as you would expect, except for one house. Unlike the others, it appeared untouched by time. Its walls were still standing, its roof had not collapsed, even its front door remained attached. At first, nobody thought much about it. They spent less than an hour inside. Years later, only one thing from that day still bothered them: a photograph taken just before they left. The building stood at the very edge of the village. Unlike every other structure nearby, it looked strangely preserved, not renovated, not repaired, just untouched. One of the students joked that it looked occupied. Everyone laughed, but the joke stopped being funny when they got closer. The ground around the house looked different. There was less dust, less debris, almost as if somebody had recently cleared the area. The front door was slightly open. No one remembered seeing it open when they first approached. Still, nobody thought much of it. They entered the house. The interior was almost empty. There were no beds, no tables, no personal belongings. Yet it somehow felt less abandoned than the rest of the village. One room contained a single wooden chair, placed directly in the center of the room, facing the doorway. Another room contained an old clay water jug. Unlike everything else in the village, it wasn't covered in dust. The students later said nothing inside the house looked frightening, but all of them felt the same urge. They wanted to leave, and none of them could explain why. For nearly 2 weeks, the trip was forgotten. Then, one of the students began reviewing the photographs. At first, everything looked normal. Empty streets, broken walls, abandoned buildings, exactly what they remembered. Then, he noticed something unusual. In every photograph of the last house, the front door appeared in a different position. Open, half open, almost closed, wide open. Nobody remembered touching it. Nobody remembered seeing it move. Yet every image showed something different. The group argued about it for hours. Eventually, they blamed the wind and moved on. Then they reached the final photograph. It had been taken just before they left the village. The house appeared in the distance. The doorway was visible. Everything looked normal until they zoomed in. Standing inside the doorway was a woman. Not outside, not walking, standing perfectly still, watching the camera. None of the 4 students remembered seeing anyone. The woman wore dark traditional clothing. Her face was difficult to make out, partly hidden by the shadow behind her. The more they zoomed in, the less clear she became. Nobody could explain why she appeared in the photograph, or why nobody remembered seeing her. Months later, one of the students returned to the area. The village was still there. The empty streets were still there. The ruined buildings were still there. The last house was gone. Only a patch of uneven ground remained, as if nothing had ever been built there. Later, he showed the photograph to an elderly man from a nearby town. The old man studied it silently for a long time. Then he handed the phone back. The student asked if he recognized the woman. The old man ignored the question. Instead, he pointed at the doorway and said, "You should have left when it opened." He never explained what he meant. According to the student, he never visited that place again. Some places are abandoned. Others are simply occupied by someone else.